Hi guys, welcome back to my amazing kitchen. My name is Abba. In today's video, I'm going to show you step by step how you can make the most flakiest and moist pie you have ever made. So come along and let's get right into it. First, we are going to start with our filling, and for that we'll be needing some minced beef. I'm using half and half. We need some curry powder, thyme, aniseed, onion powder, garlic powder, some black pepper and some white pepper, and some chopped onions as well. To make the filling, I'm going to heat up my skillet and add about 2 tablespoons of some olive oil, and then go ahead and add my chopped onions. Now fry the onions for about 5 minutes until soft and translucent. This will take away that rawness or sharpness from the onion and add a touch of sweetness to your filling. You don't necessarily want to caramelize it, you only want to sweat it down. Now add your minced beef to your onion and break it down right away so they don't clump up. So for my meats, I'm using half beef and half pork to give me that balance of moisture. If you use beef only, it tends to become dry. Now once your meat is broken up, you want to go ahead and add all of your seasoning. You don't necessarily need to use the seasoning I am. You can use any seasoning of your choice and add your salt. Now give this a good stir until all your seasoning is well mixed with your beef. Continue to cook, stirring frequently until your beef is completely cooked. Now make a cornstarch slurry of 1 tablespoon of corn flour and 2 tablespoons of water and add it to your cooked beef. The cornstarch will act as a binder and keep the filling together, but also make it very moist. Now allow this to cool down completely and let's move on with our pie. So now for the pie dough, we are going to be needing some all-purpose flour, and to it I'm adding 2 teaspoons of some nutmeg, some garlic powder, and some onion powder. I'm going to mix everything together until they are well combined and set it aside for now. In a separate bowl, I'm going to crack in 2 eggs for our wet mixture, and to this I'm going to add some fresh milk. Now I'm going to beat this until the milk and the eggs are well mixed together. So now to our dry ingredients, I'm going to add some cold margarine. You can also use butter, but in this recipe I prefer to use margarine. So I cut up my margarine into small cubes and I kept it in my freezer to keep it really cold. This is necessary for a flaky pie. So this is the brand of margarine that I use. If I were to use butter, this would have been the butter that I would use. But for this recipe, I'm using my Blue Band margarine. So to make the dough, first I'm going to coat my butter with the flour so they don't stick to my fingers. Once the butter is well coated with the flour, I'm going to switch from my fork to my hands. And you don't want the palm of your hand to touch the dough because that is the warmest part of your hand. So you use just the tips of your finger to rub the butter into your flour just like this. So if you did it well, your palm will remain clean after you are done rubbing in the butter, just like this. It is perfectly fine if you still got some chunks of butter or margarine left in your flour. That is even perfect for a flaky pie. We are now going to introduce our wet mixture to our flour, and you don't want to add in all at once. You are going to do it gradually. You are still going to use the tips of your finger to bring the dough together. You don't want to knead your dough because you want to develop as less gluten as possible. The moisture intake of every flour is different, so add in your wet mixture gradually and continue to bring the dough together. You know your dough is done once you can bring it together without it falling apart. So I'm not kneading the dough, but I'm just trying to bring it together with the tips of my fingers. So having said this, you may need more or less of the recommended wet mixture that I'm going to list in the description box down below. This is the part of making dough that you need to practice to get it right, because you need to feel the dough to know if you are at that crucial point. Now I'm going to wrap my dough in a cling film and chill it for about 30 minutes before I start rolling them. And as you just saw, the dough is not really coming together. It feels like it's a bit loose. That is exactly what you want. And you can still see some specks of margarine in there. Let's chill this and then come back to fill our pies. So at this point, our filling is completely cooled, ready to be used in our pie. And our dough has also had time to chill and relax. On my work surface, I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of flour so my dough doesn't stick to my worktop. I'm going to sprinkle some on top as well and on my rolling pin. Now gently roll out your dough. As you can see, I'm not applying a lot of pressure. You need to do it gently. To get the perfect round shape, I have noticed that it works best if you give it a turn a couple of times whilst you roll. So roll it out, turn, roll it out again, turn it, and this also prevents it from sticking to your work surface. Once you reach your perfect thickness, which for me is about between ½ an inch to 1 inch thick, you are going to roll it out, and for me, I use my cake ring to cut out my shapes. But you can also use a bowl just like this. They all work. Now remove the excess dough, keep it apart, and we are going to re-roll this after we are done filling these two pies. Make sure to keep it in your cling film so they don't dry out. Now with my offset spatula, I'm going to gently lift up my pie and turn them over to fill them. You don't need the offset spatula, but I just have it, so I use it mostly for this. Now scoop some of your filling onto your pie dough, and please be generous with your filling because after all we are making a meat pie. Now I'm going to push my filling onto one side of the dough and gently fold it over. With my hands, I'm going to try to seal it in so the filling doesn't fall out. Now with my fork, I'm going to press down the edges to seal them in properly, but also to give it a very decorative look. And just like that, our very first meat pie is done and ready for the oven. But I'm also going to show you a second way you can also fill or decorate your pie. So just like we did before, you are going to scoop some of your filling onto your pie dough, and with the help of your spoon you want to push it to one edge of your dough and then fold it over, making sure that your filling stays well inside your dough. With my hands, I press it down to seal it in and then use my finger to press it down. So instead of using the fork, you use your finger to press down the edges, and this gives you a different look as well. And if you look closely, you can still see the specks of margarine still in our dough. This is a good indication that your pie is going to be very flaky. Now you get to choose which one you are going for, either with a fork or with your finger. I'm going to transfer this onto a baking sheet lined with some parchment paper and continue to roll out all my dough. So in the meantime, I am also preheating my oven at 180 degrees Celsius. You want your oven to be hot before you put your pies in there. Now I'm going to poke in some holes on top of the meat pie for ventilation and also for a decorative look. Next, I'm going to brush it with some egg wash, which is just a beaten egg with a splash of milk. And this is going to give it that golden color. After adding our egg wash, our pies are ready to go into our 180 degrees Celsius preheated oven for about 30 to 35 minutes. If you prefer your pies on the pale looking side, check around 30 minutes, but if you want it darker like myself, give it maybe an extra 5 minutes. And here we are. Our pies are beautifully baked and ready to be enjoyed. But before you do that, you need to give them some time to relax and rest for a while. Just some few minutes. In fact, at this point, who is bringing me some super chilled malt whilst we wait for the meat pies to cool down so I can get myself ready? I'm sure you are really curious to see if that filling in there is as moist as I promised. So here you go. A very moist filling, very yummy. The seasoning is just enough. You just need to try this recipe to know what I'm talking about. And this is how you can tell if your pie is flaky. If your dough doesn't crumble like this, then it means something went wrong somewhere. But don't give up, keep on practicing and you are definitely going to nail this. Okay, so I'm going to grab that super chilled malt right now. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and see you in my next video. Bye!